Alright, so this is a video that's been requested a couple times. It's going to be how to remove the carburetors on a motorcycle. The motorcycle that we're working on today is a Yamaha FJ1200. This is going to be an inline 4 motorcycle, and so this video is going to be about how to remove the carbs on that configuration. Lots of different motors are set up differently. You're going to use a different process to remove, say, a V-twin or a V4. Also, some of the older inline 4s have a little bit of a different process, but this is how to do it. These are the basic components that you'll find when you're digging out your carbs for the first time. So here we go. First thing you do, for safety reasons, take out the battery when you're using gasoline. You have the potential to dribble gasoline all over the place. Just take out the battery for safety. Next, we're going to remove the gas tank. Sometimes gas tanks aren't even bolted in. Sometimes they'll have 1 or 2 bolts in the back here underneath where the seat would go. Rarely they'll have a bolt up here. Some bikes have actually bolts on the side. So just look around, see if you can find a couple bolts holding this thing on, and then undo them. Then just sort of pull the gas tank up, and you'll see the little hoses and maybe a couple electrical snaps. If your bike has a gas gauge, then there'll be a little electrical thing going into the sender unit. But definitely going to the petcock, there will be the fuel line, and on most bikes there will also be a vacuum line. So you're going to pull those off too. This one looks like the vacuum line is already disassembled by the previous owner, and so all I have to do is disconnect that big fat fuel line there. You can see that little clamp there with the little rabbit ears. You just squeeze those together, pull it off, and there you go. So I'm going to pull that off. Be careful now, if the petcock is especially old, it might dribble a little bit, it might gush gasoline everywhere. So if you start leaking gas, just plug it up with your finger until you can pull the gas tank off. Alright, so my gas tank's been taken off. I'm just going to set it there so I can drain it and repair it later. Now I'm going to get into the carbs. The thing I do now is, especially on these more sportier bikes, these sport bikes, usually you can take the carbs out from the top. On more standard cruisers or older bikes, U-Jams or whatever, you might have to slide it out the side. So for bikes that I can slide out the top, what I like to do is actually remove the cables first. If I have to slide it out the side, then I remove the cables after extricating the carburetors from the motorcycle. So what I can do, if I have the accessibility, is just take off these cables here. We have 2 for the throttle, one's a push and one's a pull, and then we have the choke. They're just real easy. You can mark them if you want, a little piece of tape, says forward, rear, and choke or whatever. Or when you go to reassemble the bike, you can just play with the throttle and figure out which one is which, and then it's real easy. So that's what I'm going to do now, if I have the accessibility to get in there, that is. If not, don't worry about it, you can do it later. Alright, so each carburetor is going to have 2 clamps. One in the back, one in the front. This one goes directly into the motor, this one comes from the airbox. So you're going to need to loosen off all 8 of these clamps. Don't have to be removed or anything, just loosen them off a couple turns so that they're not clamping down anymore. Alright, so this is the point that a lot of people get stuck at and frustrated at. They have it all loose, but where do you go from here? You can't just lift them up because the carburetors are still inside the boots. So how do you go from here? Well, you need to make a little bit extra room, obviously. So what I usually do is I'll take the airbox, I'll loosen it and push it back a little bit. You see this extra maybe inch or so that I can get in here? That's really all you need. So it might actually involve also taking the battery box out, which is right here, but that's just 2 10mm bolts right there. That'll come out, this can go back, and then we'll have a little bit of room to play around with these carburetors. So this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Anything that you can do to actually move the airbox back to give you a little bit of wiggle room in here. Something kind of fortunate actually for other FJ owners out there is that this whole subframe here, this whole rear end, can be removed in just 4 bolts. We have this one here, and this one, and then, or rather this one, and then 2 corresponding bolts on the other side. And then this whole thing just moved back real nicely. So yeah, so look around on your bike, see if there's anything you can do, something like this, to give yourself some more room. In the past, something that I've done for bikes where the frame is just one whole unit is I've taken a screwdriver and actually poked these boots inside the airbox, and that'll give you an extra inch or so to have a little bit of wiggle room to get your carburetors out. So next thing we gotta do, we still have the carburetors attached to the intake boots. These ones are usually a lot harder. Sometimes they get cracked and really brittle and everything, so sometimes it can be hard to extricate carburetors that have been sitting for a long time from these boots. So what I will sometimes do is take a hair dryer or a heat gun and really warm them up, and then they get a little bit more malleable and the let go of the carburetors a little bit easier. Another thing you can do is squirt some WD-40 in there. Never hurts to have a little lubrication. So yeah, and then what you do is, once you have this all malleable and once you have it all lubed up, just sort of get on top of the bike, pull it up like this, push it down, pull it up, push it down, wiggle it, and just try and get it to pop out of these 4 boots. So once they pop out, this is what you'll see. They'll just sort of pop back like this, and then you can lift them on out. If you still have some cables attached, you can take them off now. It's just a 10mm wrench right here. That's the lock nut. You just take that off and then slide the cable down and unhook it from its stay right down in there. Be careful, if these things are full of gasoline, they'll be dripping gas all over the place, so put them in a drain pan or whatever, turn them upside down and let them drain out, and then you can start working on them. It's just that simple.